Yo, it's the Master Connector coming at you, live and direct. This ain't AI, it's that real human connect. Yo, welcome to the Master Connector show, where the real ones pull up and the energy grow. Every Wednesday, 1 p.m. Eastern, we live, linked in YouTube, where the real ones vibe. Started back in 2020, now the movement legit. Hundreds of episodes, and we still never quit. Steve Spiro, the Master Connector on attack. Rob Genovese, the brand builder, got his back. Two introverts, turn masters of connection. 28 years deep, built on trust and direction. No fake networking, no pin slapping attacks. We build real relationships, and that's all facts. Famous guests, athletes, authors, TEDx flames. Military leaders elevating the game. Packed 30 minutes, but the impact hits strong. Jump in the comments and connect all show long. Be authentic, stay others focused, have grit, build community strong.
Yeah, that's how we are.
Be authentic, stay others focused, have grit, build community strong.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Master Connector Show. I'm your Rob Genovese, and we are so happy you're joining us live today as we go live every single Wednesday, 1 p.m. Eastern Time. And if you're joining us live, you know live is where it's at. It's where you get your questions answered. It's where you connect with us, our guests, others in the audience, because it is the Master Connector Show, so you want to be connecting with each other. And listen, if you can't join us live every week, we get it. You're building your thing. You're leveling up. Go to masterconnector.show, and you can see the roster of amazing guests that we have coming up. Steve brings the cream of the crop when it comes to guests on our show. People from all industries, all levels of success, with their stories, their skill set, their experience, they're going to hand over to you so that you can get to where you need to go faster, right? It's what you don't know that's going to keep you stuck, right? We got gaps between our knowledge. We want to close those gaps with answers to your questions and the knowledge you're going to get from our guests. And so we're excited today. You know, I'm going solo, just so you know. Steve had a commitment and he had to bail on me, but it's okay. You know, that's why we do this together, because like in the intro, it says, you know, we got each other's backs. And that's what we do today. So we're going to have a great one-on-one conversation today with an amazing guest. And today's show is advancing to the next chapter of your life. And when I haven't met Eric yet, but we're going to soon get into some good conversation. So hang in there. The next chapter of your life, I've been through stages that I didn't know it at the time. They were actually new chapters, from when I was out of college and in my first job to suddenly finding myself owning a business in Palm Springs, California at 23 years of age. That busted. That was a complete failure. But coming back and realizing I had no skills outside of graphic design, I had no skills. And even those were a little So I had to level up. I started acquiring skills. That was a new chapter. And then what I do after that, spend 25 plus years in corporate as just a good soldier, managing creative teams, towing the company line, doing whatever they told me to do, and stop doing what they didn't want me to do, which was a lot of things after a while, because I just got tired of it. You know, I wanted to do things that made a difference, and they didn't want me to. You can't stand out in corporate. They don't like that. So I left. And that was, seven, going on 8 years ago. I left. Well, they threw me out, but I just never went back. And I had already started a company on the side for 3.5 years. So, you know, that's a new chapter as well. So we want to talk about the chapters in your life. And we got a great guest for you today. I'm going to bring him up. So listen, normally I would bring Steve up and he'd go through a lot of stuff. I'm just going to get right into the introduction, I guess, because I want to talk about what he has to say on the subject. And when I get through this intro, you're going to want to know why. So here we go. Oh, by the way, yeah. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to try and keep, so I'm working all the controls too. So if you have patience with me, you know, we want to be making sure that we get some audience participation in there. So look, if you're ready to hear from our guest, type hashtag let's go audience and let's go. Eric D. Brotman, CFP, by the way, that's a designation that's not widely held in the financial industry. You meet a lot of financial advisors, but he's a CFP, certified financial planner. He's the chairman of BFG Financial Advisors, having recently stepped down as CEO after guiding a startup practice firm into a firm with more than $1 billion in assets under management. With more than 3 decades in the financial planning industry, Eric is also the award-winning author of Don't Retire, Graduate, and host of the podcast by the same name. At the heart of his philosophy is the belief that we should never stop growing, advancing, and finding purpose, because some of our greatest opportunities can begin when others think we're finished. Please welcome to the show, Eric Brotman. What's up, Eric?
Oh, Rob, it's so good to be here, and we can pick on Steve a little while we're live. That'll be great. He's
He'll
not
catch
here
it
to
on the
defend
replay.
himself. Yeah, exactly.
So good to have you here, Eric. Thank you for making the time to join us. You got quite a resume there. Most people can't even conceive what $1 billion actually is. And I've seen various graphics and visuals on this, and I still can't conceive what $1 billion is. But so well done there. But, you know, we talked about the book that you wrote, and, you know, audience, this is Eric's book, Don't Retire, Graduate. And this to me isn't just a book. It's more of a concept because, you know, I was raised, Eric, where back in the day when you worked for a company for 40 years, you retired, right? You left the company, they gave you a pension or a package or whatever it was. And then you went fishing and you played golf and that was kind of it. But, you know, the idea of retirement is different these days. But so audience, type in #chapter, right? Because we're talking about chapters of life, maybe some chapters in the book. But what inspired the idea behind Don't Retire, Graduate?
It's a great question. And I think having done this now for north of 30 years and spent time with thousands of people, I noticed a trend, and that was that retirement sounded terrible in the traditional sense, that whole, 30, 40 years with a company, gold watch, and then they send you out to pasture and you sort of sit around waiting to die. It's terrible. And retirement itself, to me, is the absence of needing to work, not the absence of work itself. So reach financial independence. I'm not suggesting that we all are, slave to the grind forever, but advance to something that you look forward to, whether it's for profit or not for profit at that point, so that you're not sitting around. I mean, this could be a 30-year period of our lives or more. We're not, when Social Security started, you were collecting at 65, you were dead at 72. Today, people are living to be 106. And I don't know what you're going to do for 30 years, but daytime TV is not the answer.
So I love that. And that pretty much sums up. And I was taught that, right? So I talked about going through corporate and the old idea of retirement. And I watched my dad, forced retirement at 51 years old from AT&T. And, he didn't necessarily knew what he wanted to do, but he found something. Thank God he found something else to do.
Yeah.
And I don't think people think of it that way, but you're talking about the next chapter. What do you want to do post? It's not that you don't want to work, right? We need purpose. You have to have something to wake up to instead of watch TV. And look, I love golf as much as the next crazy golfer. I don't know that I could play every day. So what can you do on a daily basis becomes a question. And by the way, I want to, mention some of our guests here. We got some people popping in probably from your network too. Eric Brotman is amazing. This will be good, says Alexandra. We got Monica. Good afternoon. My first time attending. Welcome, Monica. Thank you for coming along on our ride. And the ever supportive and always present Yolanda Chin. I think she's missed one episode in probably 4 years or something. Thank you, Yolanda. We got Yolanda says, welcome, Eric. And of course, they want to hear about the chapters of life. But look, we talk about this idea of retirement, and we're talking about what the new definition is. And for myself, somewhere along the way, Eric, I probably heard from somebody like you who said, retirement is not, it's sometimes it's death, but your body takes another 30 years to catch up, is the way I heard it. It scared the hell out of me. I was like, I don't want to die inside.
And it should scare you. I mean, you can't go from 40, 50, 60 hours a week and a tremendous network and a purpose and being invited to the right gatherings and making a difference in your community and doing philanthropy and doing all the things we do to suddenly saying I used to be. And LinkedIn is such a great platform for this. If you ever see somebody whose profile, and if anybody's watching and your profile, instead of saying, architect, astronaut, whatever you do, if it just says retired, go online and change it immediately. You're not just retired. You have lots of other roles. Maybe you're a husband, a father, a golfer, a philanthropist, a volunteer. You're lots of things. If you just put retired, it might as well say deceased.
Harsh, but true. And I'm going to tell you, that scared me too. And I saw people do that. I thought, and then I don't mean offense to anybody because everybody has some sort of value, but if you're not putting it out there, we don't know. And when I see retired, I almost see irrelevant, which is another form of death, right? You're disappeared from our world and went into your own, right?
I think it's a fate worse than death, actually. It's a form of purgatory. If you think about the way in which we consider ourselves, when people ask you who you are, the first thing most of us come up with is what we do, which I would argue in and of itself is sad, because who we are and what we do are not the same, but we're inextricably linked with our professions. And I understand that. But if who you are is, I'm a banker, and then you're retired, then who you are is, I used to be a banker. Well, that's terrible. You're also other things. And so I think understanding that who we are and what we do aren't the same. We do work to live. We don't necessarily live to work. And there is it's more than nuance. I think philosophically, it makes a ton of sense. And if we're doing things we love, there's no reason to quit. If you love doing it, if you're effective, and you can change how you do it. I mean, I definitely don't work in my 50s like I did in my 20s or 30s. I don't. I work differently. And I'd like to think whether I'm working harder or not, I'm definitely working smarter. And I'm sure you have the same experience.
Yeah. It is definitely true that you work differently. I mean, and even, I talked about my journey in the intro a little bit, where I started as a 23-year-old kid owning a business. I was like, I had no idea what I was doing. And that to me was my reckoning period, because I realized in doing that I had practically no skills. So what my next thought was, I need to get skills. So I spent the better part of my late 20s, all through my 30s and early 40s, in a massive growth period. So audience, type in hashtag growth, because I want to talk about this for a second. I've seen it time and time again, Eric, where people graduate college and cease to learn, except for maybe acquiring little micro skills on their job and then getting paid to do the same job for the next 30 years, they hope, or 40 years, they hope. But growth to me was, if I want to stay relevant, which was always in the back of my mind, how do I keep relevant? Well, that was through growth. So here's the question. Why should growth never stop, regardless of our age or career stage?
Yeah, I've heard it said in business a lot that if you're not growing, you're dying. And I don't want to be melodramatic here, but I think learning has to be a lifelong process. It's a journey. It's not a destination. I don't think anyone at 21 or 22 years old, armed with a bachelor's degree in anything, is ready for the challenges that the next 50 or 60 or 70 years are going to present. Think about it. People, when we graduated, and I'm not dating you, I don't know how old you are, but when I graduated, no one was thinking about the internet. No one was thinking about website design. Nobody was thinking about AI. Nobody was thinking about technology like that. And so now young people are graduating with degrees in things that didn't exist when we graduated. Oh, by the way, some of the things we studied don't exist anymore. So if you don't want to be a dinosaur, you have to constantly be learning, improving your skills. I mean, I actually think we should all be in school as a continuum rather than a start and stop. I don't think it makes sense none of us know what we need to know for life at 22 or 18 or, by the way, 52. We don't ever know what we need for the rest of life.
Yeah. I think that becomes a part of your self-awareness. Like I said, I was in corporate for 25 plus years, just a good company soldier. But my thoughts outside of that were, what am I going to do? I'll tell you this, when I was 21 years old and I graduated college. This was back when you get a 2-year degree, Eric, doing what I was doing as a graphic designer. Associate's degree was all you needed. And I did well, fine with it. But I thought, I was commuting to work one day, commuting home, sitting in traffic. And I'm like, I can't do this for the rest of my life. Now, this was 1989. And there was no internet to speak of. There was chat rooms. There was no cell phones unless you were a CEO, right? You happen to get one of those massive ones. There was really no technology that you could leverage that would help a person on their own, start something of their own. And so I had this vision driving home one day. I thought, now here I am. I'm 21, 22 in my first career job as a designer, sitting in rush hour traffic on my way home. A 20-minute commute took me 2 hours. And I'm sitting there thinking, I can't do this for the rest of my life. And I thought to myself, and look, I believe in visions because I had one that day, 1989. Remember, there's got to be a way that I could run my own business. Back in 1989, that was not happening. Using this thing called the internet I heard about when most people were using America Online for chats, right? And I could operate one of those notebook computers. By the way, those are laptops today. Anybody after Gen X. And I can use it with a modem to get on that internet thing and run my business from my porch. That was 1989, and no way of actually doing that. And fast forward, a lot of people are doing that exact thing today. So having that self-awareness of you want something more, setting yourself up for the next stage. Now, it took me a bunch of years, Eric, because we went on that learning thing. But here's what I thought when I started my business. And I want to shift a little bit because this is the part that don't hear from a lot of people. Community, type in #joy, because people don't think about this when they think about success, right? Joy was part of what I wanted in my chapter of starting my own business, because I thought this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. But how can people intentionally bring more joy into both their work and their everyday lives?
I love that. I actually am in the process right now of trademarking something called the Joy Revenue Blueprint for Advisors, and it's helping financial advisors figure that out. Doing a lot of consulting. I'm working with a lot of very successful people who are trying to have more joy in their life and in their work. And I do think there is a blueprint for this. There's a matrix for it where you can figure out the things that you do in your day that most suit you, that you love to do. And then think about the things that you don't love to do, that aren't fun, and figure out what to do with them. Can you delegate them? Can you automate them? Can you eliminate them? Can you partner with someone? What are the options so that you spend your days predominantly doing things that fill your tank rather than draining your tank? And at the same time, fill your days with things that make you more successful financially. If you're running a business, it's a for-profit entity. You want to be more successful financially. That doesn't mean you can't do the things that bring you joy and don't make you money, by the way. It's really important to carve out time for those things because life's too short. But there is absolutely a model for doing this. And I think the more people I'm able to teach that to, the happier workplace we're going to have. And I'm starting with financial advisors because it's the world I know. But I would think that a lot of it would apply in almost any industry you could think of.
Yeah, when I started my company, so in 2015, I started my first business. I had just gotten laid off for the second time out of corporate. It took me 7 months to get another job, but I started a business that I was going to build on the side while I had this corporate, income coming in to help. I had 4 kids. We need to keep the lights on and the food on the table, So I did that. But I thought, as soon as I started the company, I thought, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. So I knew I wanted business ownership. That was me. I was so, I don't want to say burned out. I was fed up with not getting my worth, what I thought I was worth, not being able to advance based on my own merits, because I was a high performer later in my career, and all it got me was fired. But not because of incompetence, because of economics. In one case, because of legality and politics, which that was the one that hurt. That's what prompted me to start my own business. But I thought to myself, Eric, I'm going to start this business, but what do I want it to be in my life in 5 to 10 years? Because I heard somebody wise like yourself say that, like, what do you want your business to look like in your life? Because you don't want to wake up 10 years down the road and resent your business because it owns you, or because you're really not happy doing it. And that's rampant out there. So I thought, what do I want it to look like? And there was some things that I asked myself. Do I want an office? Do I want employees? Those are good things, but what were they to me? The answer was no. I wanted to be able to take my laptop, take off with my wife to Nashville or, the Keys or wherever, and be able to do business from there and not skip a beat. I wanted it to be portable. Now, that was my choice. A lot of people don't choose that. So when we talk about the joy part, that was the part I inserted. So, how do people really, if they can't get past that, what do they do to find out what brings them joy?
There's a couple of things to do. First and foremost, I think a battery of aptitude tests is wise. There's a company, an organization called Johnson O'Connor Research Center. They have locations across the U.S., and I did one of these in the D.C. metro area in high school. And because aptitudes never change, whether you're 14 or 44, it doesn't matter. And the thing about the aptitude testing, it was a 2-day battery of tests. It's about not only what you're suited for and what you're good at naturally, but also the things that you're likely to enjoy. because that is a Venn diagram. There are plenty of things that I might be good at that I don't like doing. There's other things I might love doing and I'm terrible at them, and that's not going to make me a living either. So it's important to have both. You have to be competent and joyful in a perfect world. But that's the start. And then not everyone's an entrepreneur. Only about a quarter of people on the planet are what's called a subjective personality versus an objective personality, which means you have that entrepreneurial itch to go do it. And I would say for a lot of entrepreneurs, and I don't know if this applies to you or not, but a lot of entrepreneurs are serial entrepreneurs. They like to create it, make it run, and then hand it off or sell it or part with it because they don't want to run it. They don't want to manage it. They just wanted to create it. They had a vision to do something unique. And I think as long as you are able to do something, perform a service or create something, whether it's a product or a service that people want and are willing and able to pay for, you will never starve. So if that's true and you can create something that's got demand that people are willing and able to pay for and then be great at it, whether you do it yourself for 30 years or whether you build something and pass that torch. I mean, I think when you start a business, you have to have an exit strategy, even if it's only loose in your brain. You know, if you're successful, you want the business to outlive you, and it has to be about more than you, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I wanted to build a company that would last long after I was there, and stepping down as CEO is in and of itself transitioning to a new chapter for me. And I got to tell you, having done this hundreds, if not 1,000 plus times with couples, with individuals, with professionals, with executives, until it was my turn, I didn't really get it. I didn't really know. And I've had pivots before. You know, like you, my experience in corporate America was short-lived and horrible. Yours was longer-lived than that. Mine was short-lived. I was not cut out for it. And I found myself having bounced around a little bit, being 30 years old, having no net worth to speak of, being divorced, and saying, what do I want to be when I grow up? Wow. And I think it's really important to ask ourselves regularly what we want to be when we grow up. Not what do we want to do, what do we want to be? And if you can wrap your head around that and then go create it, you'll not only never starve, you'll really enjoy it. I mean, what I'm doing now, I'm only doing things that are fun. I would not be on your show today if I didn't find this fun. I assure you, this is joyful for me.
Good.
And I was going to give Steve a hard time, and now I have to do it another time. But nonetheless, this is fun for me, or I wouldn't do it. And I've reached a point in my career where that's true at all times. That is not true when you're a startup. It is not true when you're new to the workforce. There are a lot of young people who think they're going to come right out of school and just pick their assignments. And for most folks, that's not the case. You sort of earn it over time.
Yeah. You know, you said something that triggered a thought in my head. I heard a guy say a long time ago, he said, you know, I don't mind working at a bunch of different things as long as I don't have to.
Yes.
Right. And what he was essentially saying was a lot of that is tied to income. Right. I mean, look, we are programmed to go to school, get a great education, go get a good job, you know, make the money, live your life, vacation twice a year, blah, 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 whatever. Right. And that's fine and all, but I know we're in a different era right now. And look, I've seen the other side of it. I remember I was coming through college, like I told you, and this is back in the 80s. And my dad got pushed out of AT&T at 51. I'm 58 now. I'm thinking 7 years ago, like his whole life, you know, 35 years, another 35 years after he got forced out, he had to reckon with. And so I turned to him, I said, Dad, like, I see that this is happening with corporate. People are being pushed out. People are being forced out. People are just being left out, right? And so there's this big betrayal, in my opinion, going on with corporate at that time, where there was no 40 years, gold watch, magical pension set for the rest of your life. It just went away. I said, Dad, what do I do? Here's his words. My dad was amazing. He could fix anything. He was very smart, very analytical. You know, he did our taxes. He fixed the house. Like, he did it all. Typical, you know, guy from his era. He said to me, I don't know what to tell you. And that was a real wake-up call for me, because I thought, well, if he doesn't know what to tell me, that means the rules have changed.
Yes.
And so when we go along and we're trying to figure out what we're going to do for money, sometimes that gets to be the main focus. So what do you tell somebody, Eric, when because, you know, we talked about chapter in life, and you wrote a book and I wrote a book, and we're talking about growth and joy. And people might be going, oh, that's great for you, Eric. Big CEO guy of a big financial group of $1 billion under, assets under management. And Rob, you're an author and a brand strategist, and, you run your own business and your time is your own kind of thing. That's fine for you, but I have to go to a job. What
Yes.
do you tell somebody who says, how do I get to a point where I can do whatever I want?
I'm going to share something now that pains me a lot because I have to be nice to millennials or Gen Zs, and that's really difficult. But I'm going to do my best. For the millennials,
Give them the hard truth, Eric. The hard truth.
The millennials figured something out that the Gen Xers didn't, and it was the side hustle. And actually, you were doing a side hustle before there were side hustles, so this might all be your fault, actually. But nonetheless, the millennials figured it out. And in order to have to me, having a side hustle is like having a parachute. If the airplane's in trouble, and that's the corporate job, you have a parachute. You have something to fall back on, something to work on. And if you're able to be successful in that side hustle and you love your corporate work or your primary job, great. But if you don't like it, or if you get phased out for whatever reason, to have something to immediately run to so that you're not now unemployed, not making any money at all, and having to figure this out in a position of scarcity and weakness, that's a problem. It's hard to find a job when you don't have one. It is so much easier. And for job seekers out there, it is so much easier to find a job while you have one. Don't ever quit a job until you've got your new one, unless you have no choice, obviously. But if you have the choice, it's so hard to find one when you don't have one. Yeah. So I think that's the key. Is have a side hustle, have a passion project, have something that fills your tank, even if it's nights and weekends. And I'm not suggesting you should work 80 hours a week and ignore your kids and your spouse and live your life. But if you can find some other way to feather your nest, it is a wise thing. And for folks who really feel stuck with sort of the day-to-day and the grind and the job, the best thing they can do, and this is going back to the very beginning of this conversation, is to learn something new. Yeah. Go master something new. Go back to school, and it doesn't have to be formal. You don't have to pay tuition for 2 years and get some kind of fancy degree. Go to a class on artificial intelligence, or a class on brand design, or a class on business management, or anything to hone your skills. Because where corporate's letting people go in their 50s and 60s, there's two reasons for it. One, they've gotten more expensive and they can hire cheaper. That's just a fact. Yeah. And two, the skills for people who've been there 30 and 40 years haven't kept up with the technology and the industry they're in a lot of the times. So young people come out, they're cheaper, and they've got their skill set ready. Now, what they don't have is any experience. They've never done it before, and they're going to make mistakes like rookies. So to me, the perfect match is somebody who's got wisdom and somebody who's got intelligence. You put them together because not everybody has both, and you allow that to be a partnership. You allow somebody who's done it for 30 years, who's really good at it and knows people and understands what can go right and wrong, and you match that person up with someone who's got the sharpest saw, the sharpest skills, and they are a dynamite team if they work together. I actually think that's a nice model for success in almost any industry.
Yeah, that's really great. I mean, the side hustle for me, again, they didn't call it that back then. I just did it because, again, it's just what I did. I don't know if I was being smart or whatever, ahead of the curve, but I did it. But I want to talk about something else that I believe is very important. We're already at the bottom of the half hour, so we're going to be closing up with this last question. But I want to talk about something that I see is very pervasive out there, no matter what. And look, we're all grown-ups, but we're grown-ups of different ages and different experiences. Mm-hmm. And, I wrote this book called Don't Fear the Brand. And the reason I wrote the book was it chronicles my journey of, from my late teens, early 20s, my kind of career journey and all that. And it ends up in phase 2 with what brand strategy actually is. But I wrote the book, Don't Fear the Brand, because the one thing that held me back from everything else that I wanted to achieve was the fear, whether it was fear of putting myself out there. What are people going to say? I don't want to be ridiculed. I don't want to be made fun of. I don't want people calling me out for my expertise. So you're a hack, you're an imposter, all this stuff. So the fear was very real and I overcame it. But look, audience, type in hashtag courage, because I learned that a long time ago. Courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is facing the fear and doing what you got to do anyway. But answer me this, Eric. What advice would you give someone who's afraid to begin their next chapter?
First advice I'd give is to recognize that we're all in that same storm. We may not all be in the same boat. We have different boats, but we're all in the same storm, and that fear is real. And starting a company, starting a practice, starting a business is terrifying in its own right. It's exciting. It's exciting like a roller coaster. You're going to get on, it's going to throw you around a little bit. You expect you're going to be fine. Most of the time you are. And I think there's a lot of that. The fear drives you. I actually think fear is an incredible motivator, not necessarily something to avoid, but something to face. So like you said, facing it anyway. Starting a company was scary. I mean, I go back to talk about being ridiculed. I go back to my undergraduate years. I was an English major. And I got teased by all the finance wonks saying, what are you going to do with an English major? And I said, I'm going to communicate. I'm going to write. I'm going to speak. I'm going to think. I'm going to do whatever I want. And you're going to be stuck doing this, and you better hope that you love it. And you can go back afterwards for that. I thought the liberal arts was great for me. I thought being an English major, I could do anything with it. And even my own family was like, you're spending money to go to college to get an English degree? Just go to the library. And I get their point. You do want an ROI on your education, and I don't belittle that whatsoever. But I thought this was something that I could do with anything. And I was made to feel a certain way because of what I studied. Even when I was applying to colleges, it was, oh, you're never going to get in there. And I was like, hold my beer, watch me. And the fear of starting a company, how are you going to be successful at this? You don't know anybody, and you're young, and you don't have deep pockets, and you don't come from money. And how are you going to do that? I was like, just watch me run. I'm going to do it. Yeah. And that belief in yourself and being able to ignore the haters, and they're always going to be some. Most of them are jealous that you had the nerve to go do it, and they're afraid themselves and don't have the nerve to go do it. It's so easy to say, oh, don't do that. That's scary. It's hard to say I'm taking that first step right off this cliff because I'm pretty sure I got a great plan. Yeah,
for sure. I mean, look, I was responding to a post on LinkedIn the other day where the guy was talking about, the haters in general. And, I heard somebody say sometime, nobody throws tomatoes into a crowd of people. They throw the tomato at the person in front of the crowd who is speaking up, right? So if you're going to put yourself out there, you got to expect that. And, I say I overcame the fear, and I don't know how much I overcame it as much as I just don't even give it a thought in my head. I just keep moving forward. And I held on to one thing early on, and that was when I helped more than a few clients get success in doing what I was doing, even though it wasn't tons of success, even though I wasn't even coming close to, making $1 million a year or whatever, big business, nothing like that. I helped a few people get success, and it worked for them. I leaned on that because if you can help a few people, you just got to keep helping a few more and a few more and a few more. And you lean on your past success with people. And that should give you the courage to go for the next one and not listen to what the haters say, because again, they don't even know you. Like, why would you give any time, a thought in your head to people you don't even know? Well, so listen,
Rob, the bigger you get, the more the bullseye grows too. People don't throw tomatoes at people who aren't successful too. They throw daggers at people who are more successful than they are, or who are doing something they don't have the nerve to do. So
who do you think you are becoming successful?
Yes, how dare you? And if you think about all of the modern day, the big entrepreneurs, the big ones, the Elon Musks and the Jeff Bezoses and even, the list goes on, and you can talk about Steve Jobs, but they were throwing daggers at him forever. He got thrown out of his own company. Yeah. If you look at the really big, successful entrepreneurs, they are targets. And that's not to wax political. It doesn't matter what field you're in. You're a target. You're a target if you're a political leader. You're a target if you're a business leader. You're a target if you're an education leader, a faith leader, any type of leader. If you put yourself out there, there were going to be people who say, I love what you have to say, and other people who say, I don't. And that has to be okay. You have to be prepared to deal with that. You'll never please all the people all the time, ever.
For sure. Listen, Eric, this is great. We're going to have to close up, but I know we talked about your book along the way and this concept of don't retire, graduate. I know this is an updated version of the book. It's a second edition. And I think we have an offer for this book, a discount offer. Are you still offering that?
We are not currently offering that anymore. Now you put me on the spot. I'm going to have to create one. What should we call it here? We'll need an offer. I can have one created for us. How about
maybe they can.
Let's use the word courage, and I'll put a discount on the book at don'tretiregraduatebook.com. The word will be courage. Give me a couple hours to set it up, and then go get a copy for sure. That'd be great.
All right, I'm going to put that link in the comments here. Appreciate that. And where's the best place to connect with you?
The best place to connect with me, we're already on LinkedIn. Connect with me over LinkedIn, and we'll talk back and forth, and can connect by email. You can always check out all of the resources on our websites. We have lots of them. So I have the financial planning website at bfgfa.com, the consulting website at brotmanconsultinggroup.com, and lots of free financial literacy resources at bfguniversity.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Eric. It's a blast talking with you. Maybe if you got a couple of seconds, you can hang out in the green room so I can say goodbye to you, and I'm going to shut this thing down. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
All right. Whew. So I'm operating this alone. My hands are going crazy. I hope you get the value out of this, because I know I did. Eric, I mean, we're just scratching the surface on what Eric is talking about in terms of a concept for the rest of your life, no matter what age you are. Because look, I'm 50. I'll be 59 in about a month and a half. And I'm excited about what I'm doing next because of some of the principles that Eric is talking about here. It's you don't have to retire and do nothing and wonder where your place is in the world. You can go onward from there. You can create something new. Like Eric said, the expected life expectancy is up to like 105. And I always thought, I want to live to 115. So I got to do it in good health, and I got to do it with purpose and relevance. What am I going to do that will keep me inspired? And I'm doing that work today, and you can do that too. So I want to thank Eric for making the time to come on here. And look, if you like this, next week, we got a great show. Steve will be back, so it'll be a much better show. But August 19th, how to avoid self-sabotage. I've done this before with April Garcia, episode 274. And listen, if you haven't already, go to masterconnector.show, and you can see, of course, the episodes coming up, but you could also see how you can sponsor an episode. You can sponsor an episode from the show and get your brand out there. You could also be a guest on the show, and you can fill out the form there. If you want to be a guest, if you want to get your message out there, if you want to connect with people, masterconnector.show. And listen, I had a blast. Thank you all for joining us today. We will see you next week.
Yo, welcome to the Master Connector Show, where the real ones pull up and the energy grow. Every Wednesday, 1 p.m. Eastern, we go so long.